I might as well try it again. There is quite a bit of stuff going on in the news right now to talk about. I mean, seems like every other thing that pops up on YouTube or in Google now is news about LA, and yeah. So I mean, it's a perfect time to stream. Honestly, it's a great time for it. Now is the moment. Honestly, earlier today would have probably been nice too, but I couldn't get into it. There are just times when I start a stream, and for whatever reason, my brain is just not. It's not present in that moment. It's sometimes brief moments like just while I'm in, but normally I don't get locked into that mindset. And I got the feeling like 10 minutes into that stream that I was just going to be stuck in that mindset for a while. And I was right. But things will get better eventually. Kind of wish I could talk about some of the other stuff going on in my life, but I really don't want to drag every bit of business I have out onto the internet. Besides, I've got people in my life I can talk to if I want to reflect on those things or whatever. Although my dad pointed something out to me today that I knew and I'm aware of, but it's just something I guess I don't like to think about a whole lot. Something I hadn't really been considering, I guess, which is that I'm the type, I'm the same kind of person that he is when it comes to talking to other people about their feelings. Like, I love to talk about my feelings and opinions when it comes to shit that doesn't really matter all that much, or that at least doesn't matter deeply and emotionally and personally to me. I love to talk about that kind of stuff. When it comes to like matters of close family and things like that, matters of bereavement and stuff like that, I really don't go to other people for that. I'll pretend all day long that there's nothing going on, that there's nothing even wrong. But I think it can kind of sometimes make me a frustrating person to have as a loved one in your life, because you'll like you'll think you people that are close friends with me will think that they are in like a mutualistic relationship in all aspects. They'll think that they are in a friendship where they vent to me and tell me about their feelings and stuff like that, and I tell them about my feelings, and we support each other, right? Where in reality what's usually happening, at least for me, is they're pouring their heart out with their most deep personal details, and I'm giving them only the details that I'm not personally that harmed by, or um, I'm giving them opinions and takes that aren't really based on things that are going on deep inside my own head. So when it comes to the things that actually go through my day and bother me, I really just don't have much of an outlet for that. I mean, I do. Like, I have people that want to be that outlet, but I don't know how to. Um, I don't know. I've just never been very good at. I've always been better at talking about other people's problems than I have my own. If you could dispatch the National Guard to fulfill your will, where would you send them to? Probably the fucking White House, right? I would probably turn the National Guard on the United States. Well, let me just put it this way. If I had control over the National Guard, I don't think LA would be where I would send them. I think that there are a lot of crooks and vandals and destructive people right up there in the Capitol building that could stand to have some National Guard presence enforcing their conduct. You don't support Pride? Okay. So, what relevance does that have to me? What, you think because I've got a Pride flag, you think I'm going to be like deeply and personally offended by you personally not supporting Pride? I don't give a fuck. What the foo with a bunch of fucking F's, dude. I am not the most fucking fascinating thing you've seen on YouTube all day. And if I am, then you should probably subscribe, because at that point you're just talking about really fucking fine entertainment. If I'm really the most interesting and fascinating and WTF worthy fucking thing that you've seen on the internet today, well, you know what to do in that case. If you had to design a video game, what kind would you make? Probably. That's a really good question. That's a really, really, really good question. I really don't know. Probably some kind of post-apocalyptic thing. I've got this idea for a post-apocalyptic setting that I've been rolling around in my head for years now. And I've always thought it would work well as a video game. I identify as a member of the Wu-Tang Clan. My pronouns are he, West Side. Nice. I love that for you. What is the point of your live stream? Well, ostensibly, it's to have something resembling a conversation. As a result of being like mainly a stay-at-home mom at this point in my life, I really don't get much opportunity to like go out on the town and hang out with people at bars or whatever, and even if I had the time to, I wouldn't really have the money to, or at least I wouldn't find that like a justifiable expenditure of the money. So I find it pretty socially engaging to do these streams. It's like a facsimile of sitting around and smoking a joint with somebody, which I can do that too. But at this point in my life, I don't live near any of the friends that I used to hang out with. I have yet to make a new friend group down here. So having found streaming about 6 months ago, I realized that it was a really, really, really good, what's the word I'm looking for? Like a really good framework to base, that's not exactly what I'm trying to say either. I don't know how to put it. It's just a good way to socialize with people without having to spend money or fucking deal with other people's weird bullshit. Rip old dirty bastard. I agree, Casey. Rip ODB. 100%. No one cares. You care enough to be sitting in here for the last 8 minutes. You care enough to tell me that you don't care. You care a lot. Let alone everybody else. There's 34 people in here, and 33 of them care a whole lot more than Cowboy GT. But Cowboy GT is assuredly one of the ones that cares. What would you choose if you could own any historical artifact but couldn't resell it? Ooh, that's an interesting limitation. Because obviously if you could own any historical artifact and resell it, you just pick like the Mona Lisa or something, right? So any historical artifact, but I can't sell it. Fuck, dude. Fuck. I'm trying to figure out if there's any kind of historical artifact that merely by my owning it. Oh, here we go. You know what? I would follow the relic model of the old Catholic Church. So if you just let me pick anything, I'm picking the what is the name for the spear that pierced Christ's side, according to the myth? Isn't there a name for that spear? Like, doesn't it have a title in Christendom? I would own that spear. I do not care. You care enough to keep spamming how much you don't care. Bro, are you 12? Because most people that grow up and experience puberty and start voting and shit like that, like most grown adults, realize at some point in their lives that saying you don't care is one of the fastest ways to indicate that you care a lot. Do you think the existence of humanity is a net good or evil? I think that net good and net evil are concepts entirely defined by humanity. A lot of the things that we think of as evil, well, number one, every human being has their own idea of what is and is not evil. Within the minds of some people, tearing down every rainforest on this planet to make room for fucking palm kernel oil plantations would be a perfectly acceptable way to use the land of this great planet, right? To some people, that wouldn't be a moral bad at all. To me, that would be one of the worst and most severe moral evils that we could commit as a human being, as a human species, right? Um, so number one, objective good and evil have no meaning, don't exist for human beings. Just average, everyday folks. Like good and evil is a distinction that uh, means functionally nothing because it's defined differently by every single person. So I don't think you can say that humanity is a good or an evil organism because that, like, those concepts are defined by our existence. Those concepts are defined by us defining them. Maybe they exist in some universal sense, like maybe every animal has a sense of what is good and not good for its species, but they're always um, subjective definitions based on the organism that's being surveyed at the time. So, in that sense, uh, there's your answer. But I think there's a few other ways you could ask that question that might get closer to determining whether or not the effects of our existence on the planet are good or bad. But honestly, um, it just depends on where your value system is. It just depends on what you value. If you value the planet continuing to be a green, lush place where things can live and thrive and grow, then human beings are a net negative on this planet. We destroy far more than we grow. We take far more than we put back. I'd say we're a pretty abusive species towards this planet. But if your value system doesn't include that, if your value system places human life and comfort above the lives of other things that we share this planet with, if they are at the bottom of the totem pole and you're at the very top, like the more human centric and the more egocentric your belief system is, the less likely you are to find evil and many of the things people would use to justify saying that humanity is evil on a global scale. You were thinking of the spear of destiny earlier. What do you do for money? You said you're a stay-at-home mom. How do you pay for your bills and survive? My partner works. I mean, I worked for the last. Well, obviously, I mean, let me think here. Okay, so I worked for the last like 2 years at different places, and then 2 years before that, I was homeless, and then before that, I worked at a nursing home, and before that, I'd been working since I was 16. So, but as of last week, my partner is going to be starting a new job soon, and they will be the partner that works while I stay home and take care of our baby. Sorry, I'm trying to see if I hear anything else. But yeah, the Spear of Destiny is what I was talking about. Yeah, if I could own any historical artifact, give me the Spear of Destiny, because I can charge gullible Christians to come see it. Sure, I can't resell it, but I can sell the idea of it. I can sell the visualization of it. I love Casey. I love Casey when he gets on somebody's case when he's like, you think you run this bitch. You know, I love it when Casey gets that attitude about shit. I'm telling you, y'all, if you're new to this channel, don't say no stupid shit in the chat. I understand the impulse. I really do. You can troll in here. Just be original, interesting, and readable. Original, readable, and interesting. Whatever combination of those things you want, whatever order you want to put them in, just be those things. And listen to my mods, and you'll be fine. But if you don't, just be aware we got killers on the squad. And as soon as your fucking number comes up, as soon as you start hair-lipping the powers that be within this stream, your ass is fucking grass. You're gone. Faster than I can even fucking notice your dumb ass. I thought you were Peter Griffin. No. I'm actually his younger trans sister. What is your favorite freckle? This one right here. No, I don't know. I don't think I have any freckles. I do have a weird spot though. See? You see that little brown spot? I have a spot. So I think it's time for the reinstatement of the KCPSA. Oh, dude. Hell yeah. If you write out a quick PSA, I'll pen it for sure. Do you have diabetes? I'm just saying I'm not trying to be mean like bro. I love the idea that you're not trying to be mean right after asking a person that's not even that fat if they have diabetes. Nice concern, troll, but you've been found out. Did you see my comment about being a stay-at-home parent? Yeah, did you hear my answer? If not, scroll back. Bro, what is your BMI? I don't know, and I don't care. I don't know, and I don't care. I know I'm able to fucking, walk from one end of the Walmart to the next without fucking getting winded. I know I can run back there and catch my breath in a minute or two. So, long as those two things remain true, I ain't too worried about the whole BMI thing. I ain't planning on joining the fucking military anytime soon. If you haven't noticed, I'm trans, which excludes me from military service. And that's about the only reason I can conceive of as to why a person would need, as in necessity, to lose weight. Otherwise, it's just personal fucking preference. And I personally don't give much of a fuck whether I'm fat or skinny. I've been both, and I don't care. I understand that you care a whole lot. I understand that you were raised by people who made you really ashamed about your weight. I was not. Don't sell yourself, sissy. No, it's okay. I didn't think you actually meant sissy. As in, like, don't sell yourself, sissy. That's not what I thought you meant. I figured it was a mistype. But yeah, I'm not trying to sell myself short. I just know what I am, you know? I just functionally know what I am, you know? I definitely can sometimes be derisive of myself in a way that I don't necessarily need to be, but I don't feel like I've said anything in this stream that was particularly self-effacing. Okay, Phoebe's PSA is up. Okay. When's the last time you saw your hog? What about this gut says, man, you know what? I'm not even going to fucking ennoble that question with an answer. You know why? Because it implies that there's a fucking ounce of merit to it. And it also implies that, well, it's just ennobling to the fucking person who asked that question, who almost certainly is either too young to be talking about dick, or is old enough to realize that someone who's fat enough to have trouble seeing their dick looks way fucking fatter than I do. Okay, yeah, we'll pin this. Yeah, we'll pin that. Fuck it. Yeah, that's a good enough PSA. What type of questions are you looking for? It seems like you only respond to the hateful ones. No, those are just the ones I usually land on. I don't really look for any specific kind of question. We've got politics in the title. I was reading a little bit about what was going on in LA, reading about Trump threatening, well, not Trump directly, but a Trump official threatening Mayor Bass of LA and Governor Gavin Newsom of California with arrest if they, quote, get in the way, unquote, of federal officers in the pursuit of their duties or whatever. So normally political discussion is pretty common here. Sometimes we talk about gender identity. We've been talking a lot about Pride Month because it's, because June is Pride Month. So I don't know. I'm not looking for a specific kind at any given point, but I am in a mood to discuss some political shit if that's on anybody else's mind, you know? I've actually defended your weight. I'm not hating. Well, I don't even think I've read any of your comments, Jessica, so don't, yeah, don't feel like I'm talking about you if I'm not, you know? What advice would you give to LGBTQ teens? I don't know. That's a little vague and broad, you know? I feel like the only kind of advice you can give to something to like LGBT teens as a whole might be something like be yourself, which is just kind of glib, a little bit glib. Oh, you're a stay-at-home parent, and that is a full-time job for sure. Oh, well, yeah. I mean, I just mean that when I say I don't work, I just mean that I don't have like a 9 to 5. I do a profound amount of work in the upkeep of the household, and I live on a homestead where we raise animals and have a garden. So I do quite a bit of work outside every day, um, and quite a bit of work within the house on a day-to-day basis. But a lot of times when people are asking when somebody says, "What do you do for money?" and you say, you know what I mean? Like the implications that we're talking about here are a bit different. I recognize that a stay-at-home parent has to do a profound amount of work to keep that up and to keep everything working smoothly for the folks that are working in their household, right? I recognize that. But when people are talking about what you do for work, it's it's usually implied like what do you do to make money, or when people ask you like what do you do to make money and what do you do for work are usually seen as the same question even though they actually are different. Do you have any advice for homophobic parents? Um Yeah, learn to accept your children as they are. Learn to accept other people's children as they are. Learn to accept yourselves as you are. And realize that if God didn't want gay people to exist, then he wouldn't have made so many of them. If God didn't want trans people to exist, he wouldn't have made so many of them. If God didn't want lesbians to exist, he wouldn't have made so fucking many of them. If God didn't want queer people to exist, we wouldn't. At least based on you guys' fucking ideas about how the Bible works, according to Christians, God invented everything. So if it exists, God made it. I mean, that's even good, evil, doesn't matter. Like um, according to a strictly biblical interpretation, God invented everything, good and evil, and gave human beings free will to choose between the two. And then, really, what you're talking about, if you want to debate it, is well, is it a choice to be gay or not? And all the studies that have been done on the subject suggest that no, it's not a choice. That maybe there's some nurture that plays into it, but that it's primarily a nature kind of thing. I'm going to go ahead and switch this to subscribers, 5 minutes, message delay, 10 seconds. Hold on. There we go. There we go. That'll make shit way more readable. God didn't make the world this way. We did. He just gave us free will. He put some things here like man, animals, elements, and such. Yeah, well, did he also create the nature of human beings? That's what we're debating now. So if we accept God made everything, if we're going to take that premise and use that as the basis to continue having this conversation, then the next question, in my mind, when it comes to an exegesis regarding the nature of trans people and their possible immorality in the eyes of God, the next question has to be, well, how much does God have to do with the nature of individual human beings? For example, if science figures out that this specific type of behavior doesn't really have much to do with choice, if science is able to prove unequivocally that it doesn't really matter what you consciously want, that some behaviors are ingrained, right? What does that say about God's plan? Dude, Cowboy GT, the person who was in here arguing earlier, they got banned out of the chat, and now they're going to other videos on my channel to spam and troll. I think that's hilarious. And I encourage them to continue. Please spam my shit. I think people think that they're hurting your channel or something when they do that, but they're not. They're just telling YouTube, hey, this content's hot and interesting. It inspired me to come back and leave a comment. That's why the hate comments don't bother me either. People are constantly asking, like, Phoebe, how the fuck do you deal with people being so hateful in your chat? I just answer, well, I wipe my tears with my thousands of views. Like, it's hard to be angry at people who are being hateful when you recognize that the platform you're on, the method by which they're being hateful to you, actually increases your notoriety, increases your value as far as that algorithm and that framework is concerned, as far as that platform is concerned. Did you hear my voice message today? No, I honestly haven't read anybody's DMs since this morning. At least they aren't like the last trolls who did that shit. They hit me bad. Oh my god. Well, luckily for us, trolls have pretty short attention spans. So normally, after they've had their fun a couple streams in a row, a given troll community will just kind of like move on. I'm going to take a couple hits of this in here, and then I think we're going to move outside because it's honestly kind of warm in here. I'm sitting in an office trailer right now, and there's no like AC or anything in here, and the windows did have screens on them, but one of them never did. And then the other one that does have a screen on it, well, the cats broke through the screen the other day, so now I can't keep the windows open, so it just gets fucking toasty in here. People say that if you're part of the LGBT community, then you'll go to hell, which sounds like bullshit to me, because the same people that say that God made every single human being, so God made me gay, because the same people say that God made every single human being. Yeah, okay, I see what you're saying. And that's kind of the argument that I'm making, that I'm making too, Shrek, is the fact that if we accept that God made everything, and we accept that God is responsible for human nature, insofar that if there's something that human beings do automatically, God is responsible for that. If we accept that all human beings are sinners because we all fall short of the image of God, then that means that clearly damn it. Let me reread that again. Yeah, so if we accept that God made everything, and we accept that God is responsible therefore, for all human beings being horrible sinners that fall short of his great image, right? And if we accept those two things, then you literally have to acknowledge God must have made gay people. Because it's not enough to say, well, no, being gay is a sin. Because the Bible also explains that God created sin. Effectively, because God created the fucking sense of virtue by which sin is defined in the Bible. God created the darkness and the light, not one or the other. Does that make sense? Probably not, unless you were raised in Christianity. But people will say that God created the heavens and the earth, the darkness and the light, and all of that shit. People will acknowledge that God created good without ever acknowledging the epistemological fact that if that's true, then it also has to be true by necessity that God invented evil too, because good as a concept is defined by evil. Just as evil as a concept is defined by good. Internet trolls are terrible, especially in groups. Yeah, I don't worry about them too much, but yeah, they are pretty annoying. Annoying and exploitable. My favorite kind of annoying. But yeah, the idea that queer people are all universally going to hell just suggests that God made. Here's the thing: the science proves that gay people don't choose to be gay. So what that means is that God created an entire class of people that are doomed to hell just by the way their brains work, just by the way that they were fucking born. They are now doomed to hell, which to me is a pretty weak and fucking unimpressive view of that faith. In my mind, Christianity could be used as an incredibly egalitarian philosophy that teaches people how to be kinder to one another, how to be more generous to one another, etc. But the way it's often used in the modern day is about like as far from that as you could get. What is your view on Islam? I guess I don't really have much of a view on Islam. The Muslims I've met have been kind people. Islam seems like a really interesting religion, but functionally holds no more truth for me than Christianity does. I mean, they're all based on the same misapprehensions about the planet. They're all based on the same misunderstandings about where the weather comes from and about what vengeance is and who metes out moral rectitude and all this shit. So ultimately, I really view Islam as just a sister religion to Christianity, like a sister religion to Judaism. You know, they're all three siblings, and they all three share some of the same fundamental flaws that makes them incompatible with my view, or with my philosophy and viewpoint. Not the religion, the UFC fighter? What? Oh my god. Unban Lesser? Lesser got banned? Man, who banned Lesser? Unban Lesser right now, bro. Unban Lesser. Free my boy. Come on. I ain't gonna go through the whole ban list and do it, but if one of you guys that has ban powers want to do that, that'd be fun. Man, it is fucking hot. God damn it. You know what? I'm moving outside. I don't fucking care. I am moving outside because it is hot as balls in here. I'm sick of it. Whee! Okay, so to do this, we're going to need to do a couple of preparations first. First is lighting a candle. Okay, now that that's done, I think that is all the preparations we have to make. And it's actually kind of nice out here right now. Okay. Now, ow. Now we can do that, and there we go. Yay! We made it. Okay. Okay, give me 1 second. If you went to a restaurant, the only item on the menu was vanilla chicken surprise, but it was only $7, would you order it? Yeah. Yeah, I guess. I guess I'd try it at the very least. I mean, think about it. Does chicken and waffles actually sound good? Or have we just been conditioned to believe it sounds good? No! Man, I'm such a fucking retard. God, man. I'm such a fucking idiot. God damn it, I'll be fucking glad when I can afford actual fucking cannabis again. If that ever happens. I dropped my fucking bowl, and then it's on the ground. So I have to clean up what I can of it. I don't want anything left to smoke. Damn it, I fucking can't believe I did that. Whatever, there's gonna be some fucking plant matter in there, but I can't help it. Motherfucker, man. Everything I fucking do today just falls apart. Motherfuck, that is fucking tragic. Alright, well, fucking guess I fucking... Man. Whatever. What the fuck ever. Hope you guys like listening to the dulcet fucking tones of a goddamn railroad. Good timing, stupid train. Yeah, I know. The shitty ass quality makes the yeah. Well, you realize train horns actually do blow a chord, right? I really don't want to start responding to anything until after this train passes, because I know that if I do, I'm just going to have to reiterate all my points here in a minute. I wonder if I can put this on here and have it work. Does that work? Does that work even remotely? Because if this works, this might actually be ideal. Ah, there we go. Yeah, that worked. Anyway, somebody was asking me, what do I think about the LA riots? I think that a riot is the language of the unheard. I think that if you ignore people's concerns long enough, that eventually you will do something that pisses them off to the point where they start taking to the streets and burning the fucking cities down. And every time this happens, people want to blame the people that are burning the cities down. They want to blame the people whose cities are being burned down. They want to blame everything other than the stressor. They want to blame everything other than the event that led those people to riot and the fundamental problems that gave them the impetus in the first place. The LA riots wouldn't be happening if America as a country had been taking care of its people. If America as a country had been taking care of its people, there would never have been a giant homelessness problem to fix in California or any of the other West Coast states. If America was taking care of its people, there would have never been a massive immigration crisis happening where there's millions of immigrants that are in America doing work that nobody else wants to do, that are currently being deported because there's now enough of them to scare the living fuck pants off of every white person in America. If America took care of its people and its neighbors, there wouldn't be the types of international conflicts that lead people to immigrate to this country. But ultimately, all of that immigration is driven more by one thing than anything else, and that's the fact that America is the land of immigrants. The fact that these ICE raids continue, the fact that any sort of immigration, like mass immigration enforcement action continues to happen, in my opinion, is a violation of that, what I consider to be a sacred American ideal. I think the LA riots were destined to happen. I don't think there was any avoiding them. The people's concerns had been ignored for far too long. And ultimately, I think a lot of what's driving the rioting behavior, I think a lot of what's driving people to be so violently opposed to government, to government power right now, I think what's driving that more than anything, honestly, has little to do with immigration. I think ICE raids are just what drove it over the line. That's just what drove it over the edge. That's just when it went too far. But if you ask me what's actually driving this behavior, what's actually going on, I think that human beings have been denied all of our necessities. And if they're not being denied, they're being held behind gates. They're being gate kept from us. And I think that there was only so long that the kind of economic extraction that continues to go on I think there's only so much of that that can happen. There's only so much billionaire influence in the fucking government that people will take before something leads them over the fucking line. Before something makes them go, you know what? Fuck this. I don't care if I go to jail. Speaking of going to jail, I thought it was really fucking dope that Newsom was like responding to a Trump official that had threatened him and Mayor Bass with arrest. He was like, "This sort of bloviating is just exhausting. If you're gonna arrest me, come do it." Was basically what he said. He was like, "You're just fucking." He basically told him he was just full of shit. He basically told him, "You're full of shit. You don't intend to do fuck or all. Please come and arrest me if you actually plan to. You know where I'm at. You know where to find me." And so far, no news on the arrest of Gavin Newsom. Nor do I imagine there will be. Something tells me that the governor of California would not go into federal chains so easily, but maybe I'm wrong. Do you menstruate? What fucking business is it of yours, bitch? Like, I'm sorry, but if somebody asked that of you, think about how offended you would fucking be. But yeah, if you guys want to talk about the riots, I'm more than happy to talk about them, because somebody else was asking about them earlier. That's one of the main things I wanted to talk about when I started the stream. By the way, there's 122 people watching. Make sure you guys hit that like button. It really does help. Every single time you hit that like button is another chance for this stream to get recommended in someone else's algorithm, which does nothing but improve your experience by bringing more people into the chat, by making it a more participatory experience. Everything I do here is based off of responses I see in the chat. If the chat is full of meaningless dog shit, then meaningless dog shit is the stream. But if the chat is full of interesting questions that force a person to think and that engage on that engage on a deeper level than surface, then that's what you get in terms of stream quality. So please hit the button. It does nothing but help your own fucking experience here, and it also helps my channel. So it's a little bit of you scratch my back, I scratch yours kind of situation. So please hit that button. Phoebes, I thought your comments were weird. I scrolled to another stream and folks were wilding. I scrolled to another stream and folks were wilding. Oh, dude. Yeah, well, here's the thing about my chat. Number one, right now, subscribers mode only turned on, and I've also got I've got a 10-second message delay. That is more than a lot of content creators that really are just milking their fucking chats and that really are just milking their fucking haters. That's more than a lot of them do. And the reason for that is because a lot of those people ultimately have some other hobby or something that they're doing while they do that, and it's almost like the content is like a secondary focus. They're not so much content creators as they are just like regular people that have figured out a way to content create just by doing the things that they would be doing normally, but with an audience. Whereas, ostensibly this is some kind of weird amateur show where the audience is an integral part of the content. And ultimately, my goal here is to be a thing through conversation, to give people something to listen to. I could stream while I play video games, but I just don't think it would be very interesting. There are definitely ways I could set the camera up and just go about my day doing everyday things and pissing people off just passively by my very existence. And I'm sure I could make quite a bit of money doing that, honestly, if I set it up right. But that's not exactly what I'm trying to do. I don't feel like there's a whole lot of sustainability about that. I feel like in order to be a lasting fucking figure on this space, I'm going to have to be an interesting personality, able to have conversations with other human beings. And that's why I focus so heavily on my chat here. That's why it has to be an interesting place that people can read the fucking things that are being said in it. That's why it's so important. My cat and I are watching. Do you have any pets? I've got all kinds of pets, actually. What are your favorite cold cuts to put on a sandwich? Favorite cold cuts? Let's see. Black Forest ham has to be my absolute favorite. pepperonis are nice. So Black Forest ham, hard salami, but we'll make it a top 5 list, okay? You said favorites, so I'm going to assume that I can do multiple. I'm going to make this a top 5 list. I'm going to say Black Forest ham. I'm going to say hard salami and big pepperoni. And then I think I'm going to throw in, you know what can be really fucking good sometimes? It's not always good, but sometimes it's just what hits the spot. Bologna. However, I don't think it's number 4. I think bologna is probably number 5, which leads me to wonder what is in my number 4 spot, because we're talking cold cuts. That is something, when I think cold cut, I think you take it out of the fridge, you slap it on a sandwich, there you go, hey presto, you've got a meal. So, I guess, honey ham. Even though I do kind of sound right now like I've got the palate of a toddler, maybe I do when it comes to sandwiches, because honestly, I am not a fan of all the weird, crazy meats, and, although, you know what? Most kids I know actually like turkey quite a bit more than they like ham, so maybe that's not such a childish palate after all. But yeah, I'm not a fan of the cold cut turkey that you can get. Would you ever consider getting into politics to possibly share beliefs? I see many people talk, but no one is trying to make a change. Well, I think there are some people trying to make a change. I just think the problem is that when you get into power, you have to understand the power systems in America are meant to keep people corrupted. They're meant to keep people corrupted and to corrupt new blood quite quickly. And so, in order to actually achieve change in this country, you have to be able to skirt that for some reason. And in the history of this country, there's only been a few people who've actually managed to do that to massive effect in this country's politics. One of them was Franklin Delano Roosevelt. A lot of people don't know why. Why the fuck? Ask yourself this question right now. Why was FDR able to do so much lefty shit? Have you ever wondered? Has it ever even occurred to you to wonder? Why on earth was FDR able to do so much lefty shit? I want some answers from the chat. I want you guys to guess. Does anyone know off the top of their heads why, or does anyone have a theory as to why Franklin Delano Roosevelt was able to do so much lefty shit when he was in office? And have a single idea. Anybody have any theories? I love how you're so well spoken and how engaging your streams are. I feel so much more inclined to stay and listen instead of just scrolling through. Oh, well, thank you, Jade. I appreciate that. That is what we're trying to do here, ultimately. I think, well, my view numbers indicate that quite a few people do just scroll through here and never give it a second thought. But honestly, I do try to be pretty engaging with the chat. And while I don't know that I could necessarily agree just off the bat with the idea that I'm well spoken, I mean, I think I do okay, especially for an autistic person. I think that I'm incredibly well spoken for a person with autism, given how typical it is for us to struggle with that sort of thing. And I struggle with it too. I notice weird little things about my speech all the time. I think that I'm a pretty mushed. There you go. See, look at that right there. I just did it. But I think I'm a pretty mush-mouthed kind of person. Honestly, I don't think I'm that well spoken. But it's always refreshing to hear other people say that I am. It's always reaffirming, you know. Because it was popular. Well, that's one. That's one reason FDR was able to get it done. That's one reason. Let me ask it in a different. Does anyone have any idea why? What was special about FDR that enabled him to not worry about political blowback? Maybe because public opinion were very anti-monopoly and pro-union? Another good guess. Really, the reason why Franklin Delano Roosevelt was able to do so much lefty shit and stay in office while doing it was because he was a rich guy. And that's going to sound like totally backwards, but hear me out for a second. The reason why Franklin Delano Roosevelt was able to hold power despite many challengers, despite many fucking Republican challengers trying to take his seat, the reason why he was able to stay in power regardless is because he was a rich guy. An incredibly rich guy, from an incredibly rich family, from an incredibly well-connected family. So it was very easy for him to network build. When he got into the presidency, he already had a network of manufacturers, business leaders, and union leaders that were on his side or that were amicable to his ideas. And once in power, it became very hard to extricate him from power, not only because he was massively popular with the people, which he was looked at as the best. In fact, a lot of people to this day, me included, see FDR as the best president the United States ever had. And I believe that in spite of Executive Order 96, okay? I believe that in spite of Executive Order 95 or 9. What number was it? 92? It was 90 something. Hey, at least I know that. At least I know it was Executive Order 90 something. You have any cats or lap pets? I've got a couple of cats. We've got 2 inside cats and 2 outside cats. I'm back. I left for a sec, but I'm back. Well, welcome back, Casey. Welcome back. I did not expect a genuine answer. I'm happy with this. Thank you, Phoebe. Oh, well, thanks. You're welcome. Yeah, no, for sure. I love. Excuse me. I love how I can endear myself to people so easily. But yeah, Boston Alexander, would I consider getting into politics? Yes, but ultimately, I'm a poor person. I don't know any business leaders. I don't know any trade union leaders. I'm not connected. Like, the most famous person I know is a YouTuber who has, like, just under 1 million subs. Literally, the most famous person I know had 1 million subs like 5 or 6 years ago and has since gone to like 950,000. That's literally the most famous person I know, which I look up to them a ton. Don't get me wrong. I look up to them not just like personally as kind of like they're a cool person. I admire their uh, tenacity and their wit and all that. Uh, but also like a content creator, because they've been making content on this platform, making money off of content on this platform for about a decade longer than the average. Not even the average. I would say a decade longer than most seasoned YouTubers have. Most seasoned YouTubers at this point in time right now, 2025, you're talking a lot of people who made their channels in 2021, 2020, 2018, 2015. TJ had already been making content for like 8 years up to that point, and had been making money on it for at least 4 or 5, So I look up to them immensely for that. So I don't want that to sound like a diss, because that's not the point. But I'm a poor person, and the limit of my networking extends to someone who can generate on a really, really good video. If they really blow it out of the park, they can generate several million eyes on that content. Um, well, in theory, I guess they could. I really think that they're killed by YouTube's algorithm at this point. I think that that's the main reason why some of their videos that I think are viral worthy don't end up going much farther than the community, which fucking blows, like I said, because I think some of them are viral worthy, genuinely. But the fact that I'm not well connected, the fact that I don't know the kinds of people that you have to know, the fact that I don't have the kind of money that you need to have, makes it kind of pointless for me to try and get into politics. I've considered maybe getting into local politics at a certain point, but I also don't know how effective that is, because like just as national politics are full of corruption and underhanded deals and backroom dealing and shit like that, so is local politics. Local politics is full of that shit. A lot of national politics, shit that ends up being of national importance, some of that shit literally starts on the local level. A lot of it starts on the local level in some form or another. Are you out camping? No, not quite. I'm sitting out front in my yard, but I've got a candle lit, which is probably what you're seeing. If you're seeing the flame bouncing off of me and you're wondering why, well, that would be why. It's a damn tough life, full of toil and strife, we whaler men undergo. And we won't give a damn when we drink our rum, how far the winds did blow. For we're homeward bound with the Arctic crowns, in a good ship taut and free. And we won't give a damn when we drink our rum with the girls of old Maui. Rolling down to old Maui, me boys, rolling down to old Maui. We're homeward bound from the Arctic grounds, rolling down to old Maui. Once more we sail with the northern... Shit. Oh shit. I better go see what that was. Oh fuck. Oh shit. I don't have a gun either. Man. Well, let's hope it's something I can fight with my bare hands, I guess. At least I know it ain't a person. Fuck, I probably should grab something to fucking beat it over the head with, though. Fuck. Gotta figure out what the fuck that was, though. Here, this'll work. This, I don't even know what this is called. A ditch digger, maybe? Well, I don't see nothing yet. Doesn't mean I ain't about to see something. They look okay. You look okay. Rabbits, they look okay. Although... that is a bit of fur being torn off. But that could just be because she's about to... she might just be about to give birth, so... I guess these guys are okay. And these buggers seem to be fine. Nothing in there. Nothing in there. Are you actually alive? Yeah, it is. Okay. Alright, well, that was weird. Something's just all kinds of yelling and screaming off in one of these cages, but I don't see no feathers, I don't see no blood. I don't see no missing chickens, no missing rabbits, so I guess whatever spooked them couldn't get in. But man, that really makes me question the fucking usefulness of a dog that, you know, our old outdoor dog, porch dog. She's got a pretty nice setup on the porch, but she's very old, so she may just be losing her hearing. But I'm surprised. That much activity. None of the dogs sounded off. Not a single one of them. Okay. Oh, sorry about that, guys. I heard a noise. I don't know if you guys were able to hear it. Heard a noise. Sounded like something getting into one of my pens. One of my animals' pens, but near as I could tell, Nothing got in any of them, so I guess it must just been a false alarm. Here, let me see here. See if I can get this working any better. Let me see here. Corruption in local government is a problem in Canada too. It's probably true for every country. Yeah, for sure. Phoebes, you gotta learn how to play Fredo Bang songs. Ooh, what? Okay, Casey, I'll try. Maybe. I agree with Anna Stellar. I feel as though where there's government, there's power, and where there's power, there more often than not corruption follows. Sounding kind of anarchist there, are we? Yeah, no, I tend to agree in principle. That's one of the problems with it, right? Now, where I think me and most other anarchists I know differ is that I don't think the government by itself is necessarily an inherently flawed idea. I mean, if there are certainly criticisms I have of it, but I think um, I think the idea of having some kind of overarching organization that sets the standard for what is expected out of people, right? I think that that might be a reasonable enough idea, but where I guess I agree enough with other anarchists enough to consider myself one is how many ways that that can be fucked up, right? And that's why me and every other hardcore lefty have so many fucking criticisms of the government, and that's why we have so many things that we talk about we wish the government would do, because ultimately all of that, like I really believe that a lot of anarchist philosophy grows out of people realizing how many things that they basically realize how many things the government would need to do in order to go from being an exploitative feature of society to being a benefit, like a beneficiary, not a beneficial aspect of society. There we go. And I think people realize how many things you've got to do to fix that system and kind of throw their hands up in the air in a sense. And they're just like, well, fuck it. We need to figure out some other system. And I agree with them. We do need to figure out some other system. But I also recognize that the system we live in right now is the system we've all been raised under. And as such, it's going to be very difficult for to somehow, in a season, overcome that. So I think the better fucking idea. That is weird, dude. Maybe the rabbits are fucking doing something. I don't know. I'm gonna quit focusing on those noises though, because I just went down there and checked, and there ain't nothing down there. I'm no anarchist, but there are always drawbacks to any system. Well, pointing out how there are definitely ties to be drawn between what you were just talking about and anarchist ideas. But yeah, I think that the hold on one second. I think the main reason that people like me call for so many different reforms to government systems, I think the reason why we call for so many expansions of certain systems ultimately comes from a desire to manage the power, the awesome power that government as a concept wields, and marshal that in a positive way. Because if you're talking, because I tend to agree with you, Anna Stellar, when you say that basically what you're saying can be stated a little differently as absolute power corrupts absolutely, and power alone corrupts, right? But does it, right? Does it always? That, I think, is something worth considering. I don't think it necessarily always has to. I think that, man, I'm fucking all paranoid now. Anyway. I would be too scared to walk out there. Oh, glistening ball sack. I was terrified. I was terrified, but like, I'm a farm girl. Like, if something's eating my animals, I'm gonna check it out. If I'm walking through the yard at night and I hear something getting at fucking critters, well, you fucking shit your pants and take a rifle down to whatever's fucking with your chickens at the same time. I don't know what to tell you. You know? It's fine to be scared. Scared is a perfectly fucking valid emotion, dude. People will tell you, you'll hear all this fucking shit from people saying, oh, dude, fear is just, or, you know, fear is just like a pussy emotion that doesn't do you any good, and it limits and all that shit. And I do think fear can be limiting and shit, right? But ultimately, fear, just by itself, fear is fine. What is not fine is not acting in the face of fear. Because sometimes your fear is a perfectly rational thing that keeps you from doing something stupid. And other times your fear is completely irrational and should be fought against. For example, my fear of going down there to check out the chickens. What the fuck am I afraid of? A cheetah? Like, seriously, guys, what the fuck am I afraid of? A tiger? A lion? I live in Mississippi. The dangerous fucking thing that could possibly be down there is somebody's stray dog. That's the most dangerous fucking thing that is likely to be there. Sure, there have, in theory, been some fucking sightings of Florida panthers in Mississippi, but not a one of them in the last 25 years has come from this area. Not a one of them in the last 25 years has come from anywhere north of Hattiesburg. So it's like, you know, and even the ones that do come out, they're all so dubious, you know. There have been a couple of people who have captured pictures of Florida panthers on game cameras and otherwise in Mississippi. A couple over the last, like, fucking 100 years. And so, you know, about a Florida panther being down there. Now, if I lived further south, maybe I would be, you know, if I lived in, like in South Alabama or somewhere in Florida, yeah, I would be worried about seeing like a panther down there maybe but here's the thing, a panther that sees a big clumsy human stumbling towards the very human smelling place that it's investigating a food source in is going to run right the fuck away from that. They don't want that heat. Trust me, cats are smart enough to know they don't want that heat. And they're not going to look at you. Like, that's the thing a lot of people don't realize that I think makes some people more afraid of the nighttime than they need to be. You have to realize animals recognize technology to some degree. We've been around animals long enough that at this point, like, there are a lot of animals who are afraid of fire instinctually, just default afraid of fire. But there are a lot of fucking animals that now seem to have some kind of instinctual fucking recognizance that fire at night or any kind of light at night that isn't in the sky is usually a human being. And human beings kill things, sometimes just for the pleasure of doing it. And I think a lot of fucking animals have realized that, and they don't want that heat. That applies for all kinds of fucking critters. Now, it's not necessarily as true in areas where you've got widespread habitat destruction that has led to normally wild species coming closer to urban establishments and urban neighborhoods and things like that, residential neighborhoods, and they've become emboldened, right? There's a different psychology going on when something like that happens. But when you're talking about your average, everyday, completely feral, completely wild animal, they're more afraid of human beings than we are of them. And I'm saying that's still true even if you're drop dead terrified of them. Animals ain't, like, most animals don't want to fucking risk that shit. There are just a few fucking animals that are not scared at all by human beings. And most of them are not scared of human beings because their species didn't co-evolve with ours. Every fucking species whose ancestors co-evolved with ours has a natural fear of us. Think about that. That's something, you know, it's something I think a lot of people don't really think about, right? They never give it any pause. It's just like, well, of course animals are scared of us. Duh. And they just think, I think, especially Okay, here's actually an interesting thing. Okay, if you're a person who grew up in a city in the chat, sound off right now. Um, what perception did you have of wild animals? Like, did you have any sort of natural inclination to whether animals would be afraid of you or not? Like, um, God, I don't even know how to ask this question. So, me being a country kid, right? I'm through life, my whole life, just knowing animals are afraid of human beings. So that's why you have to sneak cautious and all that. And for some reason, I'm not afraid of any of the other animals, but we have to be real quiet and cautious, and you have to sneak up on them and all that shit. And the only justification I ever heard was, well, humans are predators, so you know. But they would always act like it was specific to deer and stuff like that. But the older I got, the more animals I had experience with, the more I realized, no, it's pretty much every fucking animal whose ancestors coexisted with human beings or their ancestors at some point. Pretty much every single one of those animals terrified of us. Like wild cats. The only fucking wild cats that want to have shit to do with human beings are cheetahs. Like the only wild cats that, not the only wild cats, I guess, but the only large wild cats that want to have shit to do with a human being are cheetahs. And that's because human beings have been keeping cheetahs in captivity for like 5,000 years, you know? Like we've got a long and established relationship with that animal, which a lot of people don't even realize that. A lot of people think about big cats they would want to own as a pet, and they think tiger. No, 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 tiger. Nope, you don't want a tiger. You trust me. If you want a large cat, you're just insistent on the idea. You don't want a soul. You don't want a lynx. You don't want a fucking bobcat. You don't want a goddamn puma. You want a cheetah, because it's the only fucking wild cat that we are even. It's the only large African cat that we are even close to domesticating. In fact, we probably have domestic cheetahs at this point. Like I don't know if there's a population that has been continually owned for all that time. But I know that human beings have been keeping cheetahs in captivity for like 5,000 years or some shit. That is exactly why I would choose the bear. You make your presence known and they will steer clear. Men, not so much. I see why you say that. Yeah. I see why you, yeah, and when that question was going around, I didn't really have much commentary on it because I think me being autistic, I didn't really see it the right way. But now that you've illustrated that point, now I get it. At first, I really didn't understand it because I wasn't thinking about it from the standpoint of animal psychology. I was literally just thinking about it. For some reason, I included a lot of um, I took a lot of liberties with my perceptions of what people were setting up when that thought experiment was going around. I kind of just assumed like, oh, well, you have to face one of these things in Mortal Kombat, or you have to have like a personal encounter with one of these things at the very least. Which one do you choose? And that's why I kept thinking, well, I mean, even if men are the ones who can fuck you up worse, wouldn't you still want to choose them? Because the bear can just like bite your neck half and shit. At least you got a fighting chance against the dude. But yeah, I mean, if you take that limitation out of there, if it's just open forest and you're just choosing which one you're going to bump into randomly, it makes a lot more sense to go for the bear. Because fucking 99 times out of 100, unless you bump into a mother bear really close too, like unless you are 10 feet away from a mama bear and she's got her cubs with her, and you don't immediately start backing off and making it very clear that respecting that distance, you're putting distance between you, like in a case like that, you might get mauled by a bear. But honestly, even then, that mother bear is not looking to eat you right then and there. That mother bear has probably been foraging food all morning and just wants to take out the threat to its cubs. And in that case, it'll just leave you mauled and dying, which might be an even fucking worse way to die, by the way. A lot of people think being mauled by a bear, oh, that's such a horrible way to die. Well, imagine this, being mauled by a bear and you don't die. Imagine getting mauled by a bear and then you lay there for the next 6 hours, dying slowly from blood loss as Alaskan wilderness comes in around you. and as the animals from that wilderness start perusing your body, you know. I'm not a man hater. I'm more just man weary because of the things that were drilled into my head as a kid, plus bad experiences I've had. Yeah, that's the impression I've gotten from most other women that I've talked to about this issue. It's not that any of us are man haters. It's that, like, pretty much all of us recognize the threat that a man can pose that women don't typically pose. And I feel like a lot of disingenuous arguments are made against feminists who make this point, who point out why men are scary to women, why that is such a thing. Um, but ultimately, I don't think any woman that holds that position I don't think any of them are denying that women can do those things. Obviously, women can rape. Obviously, women can murder. Obviously, women can assault you. The thing is, pick 100 people who've been assaulted, and most of them, like 70, probably 70 of them, will have been hurt by men. And that's something to fucking contend with. Now, I obviously don't think it has anything to do with biology, right? I don't think that biology has that big a determining factor in your behavior, especially not for human beings. I mean, maybe it does for some other species, but human beings are, if anything, we're the brainiac of the animal world. We're the brainiacs. So we're the ones who have mastered the art of controlling our behavior. We have mastered the art of manipulating our own behavior to suit the interests of the society that we live in and suit the interests of people around us and stuff. You know, Casey, I know you meant well, but bro, don't call me a tranny. That's just weird. It just rubs me the wrong way. Like, just because I am trans and we're cool, you know, you're gonna call me a tranny? Come on now. Ultimately, it doesn't. I think the only reason it bothers me is because you're a mod, you know, and because we're kind of like chill. But it's not like earth shattering. I guess it doesn't matter that much. I've got a pretty good sense of humor about shit, I would say. You guys hear that? The beautiful sound of silence. I feel like any good system needs to have a way to manage the pull power might have towards corruption. Yeah, I mean, any functional system that's expected to be sustainable over the long term needs to have a way for that power to be directly accountable to the people. Because I genuinely believe that an informed, active populace will not. I don't believe that they would empower rulers who act against their interests. I think that they would empower rulers who act in favor of their interests. I think that democracy in and of itself is a pretty good idea, but I think that there are things that need to be coupled with it to make sure that it's effective on the long term. That's why I think that. That's why I kind of like the idea that, like, one of the ideas that America's founded on is that some laws need to be semi-permanent. Some laws need to not be subject to change all that often. Some guarantees need to be in the law that clarify things and make sure that this, that, or the other thing can't happen, or that this does happen. Like, I think our like the amendments in our Constitution, for example. um, I think the amendments of our Constitution are a great example of a country deciding, you know what, this, and that thing are things that we have to have. We need these. These are. That's what people mean when they say constitutionally guaranteed, right? They mean that the Constitution lays it out in pretty exacting language, and I think that part of a system that effectively resists fascism and authoritarianism, I think that that's part of a system like that. Part of a system like that is having these these rules in your society that are incredibly difficult to change, that require massive participation by the people to change, because having a system like that enables you to, well, I mean, look at some of the things America has enabled because of what things are in our Constitution. I mean, um, the fact that you can say basically whatever you want in America. Now, maybe that's starting to change now, but you can more or less say whatever the fuck you want in America. That's something that's been guaranteed by the First Amendment, and it's only been expanded upon since it was published, right? When it was published, it was already a pretty fucking crazy piece of work, because you could suddenly say things about politicians that you were never able to say before. You could suddenly talk shit about the nobles, and the government was not allowed to come gaffle you up, nor could any of the government's resources be used to gaffle you up. I mean, that's an amazing bit of progress that America managed to codify. Now imagine if we could codify universal health care into an amendment. Imagine if we could codify Social Security into an amendment. You know, it's my opinion that a lot of these systems that have been fucked up so bad, it's because so many of them were passed without that sort of participation, without that sort of strong arming. I think that if Social Security was in the Constitution, I think that I think it would be a much more secure system if it was laid out exactly in the Constitution how those funds can be allocated, how they can be used, if they can be borrowed against, etc. Who is your least favorite person in the left-wing media? My least favorite person in left-wing media. Oh man, probably Destiny, honestly. Probably Destiny. He's just such a turbo lib. He's like, I don't know. He's like the male, way more listenable Hillary Clinton. What can you say? Who's Destiny? Exactly. Exactly. Exactly, Interstellar. Exactly. Who? Literally who? I wonder if there's anyone out there for whom I'm their favorite left-wing media person. Even though, like, I'm literally of no note right now, you know? Although, if my current rate of growth continues, I will probably have 10,000 subs, either by the end of this year or by this time next year. I have to do the math, but that's kind of cool to think about. I've heard that trans people have the same rates of committing violent crime as men. No idea if it's true. I hope not. No, that's not true at all, not as far as I know. I've actually heard the opposite. I've heard that trans people are the least likely to commit violence. My understanding is that among the people who commit violent crime, the vast majority of them are cisgender, like a profound majority of them, which I guess makes sense, you know, because, like, honestly, I guess trans people could probably have like 4 or 5 times the rate of violence as cis men and still only make up a 2 or 3% stake in the prison population, right? Because we're so low population in general. But I will say this much. I used to work at Eastern Reception Diagnostic and Correctional Center in Bon Terre, Missouri. You can look up this facility. It's a facility within the Missouri Department of Corrections that is, well, as the title suggests, a receptive and diagnostic facility. What receptive and diagnostic facilities do is they take in inmates from different parts of their region. They're intake centers is another word for them. So they take in inmates from the county jails that have been sentenced to prison, and it's basically your first stop if you get prosecuted for a crime anywhere in East Missouri. You're going to be sent to the Eastern Reception. You're going to be sent to ERDCC, and they will process you through and determine which prison you actually need to end up at. Now, because ERDCC is also a CC and not just an RD, because it also has a correctional aspect to it, it actually has what I guess you might call permanent housing of its own. And all of this is to say that I used to work directly within the criminal justice system. And as a person who's worked within the criminal justice system, the population of trans people within that prison was actually less by about 50%, which is a way more stark number. Now, like, you think it's stark now, just wait till you hear this. There's probably like 50% less trans people in that prison than there were in the general population. I say that because it was like a 2,197 bed prison or something like that, and there was one trans person in the whole complex. The entire complex, one trans person. Now, in order for, like, if you were going to say that their numbers matched the population figures as they're estimated by just everyday figures, like, the usual estimate is like trans people make up like 0.6% of the population. 0.6% of 2,000 would be sorry, I'm doing the math. So about 11 people. So if the population of trans people on the outside matched the population of trans people within that prison, we should have had 11 trans people in that facility. We only had one. What that tells me is that either Missourian trans people are way less likely to commit crime, or trans people in general are less likely to commit crime. Sorry, that math took me forever to do in my head. Something so funny, Trump has more r/allegations than trans NCAA players. That's funny. Well, yeah, dude. Trump has been accused a bunch of times of touching up on people and fucking downright sexually assaulting them and all kinds of shit. Trump has all kinds of fucking scandals like that, but he's a billionaire. He's a rich-ass billionaire from a rich-ass fucking New York real estate family. He ain't never gonna be fucking questioned. He ain't never gonna be brought in on any of that shit. Certainly not now that he's fucking dictator-in-chief. You think any of that shit's gonna get prosecuted now? Number one, old Coot's probably gonna die before he leaves office, because he's fucking ancient. So let's just consider the fact that he'll probably pass away before he even ever gets a chance to stand tall before the man, so to speak. But even if he does, in theory, inexplicably live throughout the entirety of his presidency and goes on to have some kind of public life after that, I guarantee you that public life is not going to feature some long, drawn-out trial with Trump versus all the people he's fucked over, or fucked against their consent, or sexually assaulted. Because he's a fucking rich fuck. And there are two different systems of justice in this country. If you're a rich person, if you're a rich, connected fucking person, like a Donald Trump, or a Bill Gates, or an Elon Musk, or a Ghislaine Maxwell, or a fucking Jeffrey Epstein, or whatever, if you're one of those guys, if you're one of those people, Hillary Clinton, if you're part of that elite few, then you don't have to worry about laws, even if you're not as rich as those people. Honestly, if you're making 500 grand a year or more, probably if you're making 200 grand a year or more, you really ain't got to worry much about laws and shit like that. I mean, there's some you have to worry about, but that's the fucking thing. That's why it's, people will call it a two-tiered justice system. Really, it's not two-tiered. Two-tiered makes it sound a lot more black and white than it is. Really, it's not black and white. It's a spectrum. And it's a spectrum where there are two axes, right? And they are parallel axes, right? So as you go from left to right, well, okay, I'm trying to use directions because I want you guys to be able to visualize this, but let's just say that on the left you've got really, really poor, and on the right you've got billionaire rich, right? And that's one axis. The other axis is on the left, coinciding with super, super poor, you have strict expectation to adhere to all laws and regulations. And on the very right, coinciding with super, super billionaire rich, you've got complete lack of any accountability. And that is the spectrum of the American justice system. It is two parallel axes that represent poverty and accountability. The poorer you are, the more accountable you are expected to be. The richer you are, the less accountable you're expected to be. I know it's harder to say, it takes longer to talk about, but that's the truth of the situation. Oh shit, we're at 1% battery. I'm not, well, that's why I amended my statement. I'm not saying that someone who makes 200K is above the law. What I'm saying is that, oh shit, that someone who makes 200K is more above the law than someone who makes 20K. And someone who makes 2 million puts both of them to shame. That's what I'm saying. So afraid I'm going to trip. Ow. Excuse me. God damn it. I gotta set a bunch of shit down. Set you guys down. Majorly stinks in here, y'all. Okay. Alright, you gotta move. Oh. Okay. That reminds me of how Hammurabi's laws literally had greater punishments and higher fines the poorer a person was. He went out of his way to codify that crap. Oh yeah, dude. 100%. And it just goes to show you, by the way, that this idea that the rich are above the law and that poor people need to just stay in their place, that idea, it's something that is far older than Marxism. It's something that far predates any sort of leftist ideology. It's just how the ruling class operates. How do you think they keep this fucking shit going, dude? It's so ingrained. So ingrained in people's minds. How exactly are they above the law? You think police just let them off, or judges? Well, let me give you this. Let me just run you through it, right? Let's say that you're a poor person and you get pulled over. The cop claims to smell weed in your car, demands that you get out, and demands a search of your vehicle. You let him search. He finds a joint somewhere in your car and writes you a big old ticket for it, big old citation, threatens to arrest you, all this other shit, right? And let's just say you don't have the money to pay for that citation. Let's just say that you don't even have the money to fucking deal with it. You go to court, you still get saddled with the fine, and you set up a payment plan with the judge, but you're not able to make that payment plan. And what do you think happens to you eventually? Well, eventually you're expected to fucking go in and serve your sentence. You're expected to, if you can't fulfill that obligation through money, then you're expected to go do an equivalent amount of jail time, basically. And what happens if that same situation happens if you're rich? Well, all that same shit, except at the end of it, or actually before you even gotten the tickets, you're on your phone with your lawyer. Before the cop has even handed you your tickets, probably, that cop is probably getting a call from your lawyer or from someone in their department because that lawyer has put you on hold and started a phone call with their department and is listing off all the things they're doing wrong in this stop just right now, right? And has is pointing out all the different security features on your car that you've installed because you have the money to. Basically, your lawyer gets on the phone with as many people as he needs to and diffuses the case before it even begins. That's the difference. If you're rich, you can afford lawyers. If you're poor, you can't afford to have a lawyer on retainer. But it's not universal even for rich people. And that's why I say it's a spectrum, right? If you're just basically rich, if you're just well off, right, then you can afford a lawyer. You can probably afford a good lawyer, but you can't afford a great lawyer. If you make $500K a year, you can probably afford a great lawyer. You can fucking afford a great fucking lawyer. But if you make $1 million or more a year, you can afford the best lawyers in the fucking business. You can afford the best attorneys in the fucking business. People who will do the shit that I was just talking about. People who will go through whatever they have to go through to get you off of whatever it is you're being accused of, no matter how well deserved that accusation is. Their entire job and the reason you pay them as much as you do is to get them to get shit off your case and off your back. So it's not that cops are letting off people because they're rich. It's not necessarily that judges are letting people off because they're rich. It's that our justice system is specifically set up so that if you're poor, you are forced to engage with the system and work for the system usually. And you're forced to pay the system. But if you're rich, then you're not paying the system, you're paying a lawyer. And that shit never goes on your record. It never becomes a thing. It never affects your future employment opportunities. So what should happen to poor people if they get fined, let off the hook, no punishment? Let me ask you this. If a law is so if a law is so meaningless that if a law matters so little to society that the only punishment meted out for it is money to the state, is it really something that needs to be illegal? And if it's something that is worthy of more, then why do we need a fine for it? I don't think you're listening to I don't think you're picking up what I'm putting down. The very concept of a fine is a classist idea. The very concept of a fine is an anti-poor person, an anti-worker idea. The very concept, the very idea of it is classist in nature. Because the very idea of a fine is, well, this thing's illegal, but if you have enough money, I mean, you can just pay the fine. A fine is pretty fucking meaningless if there's never any jail time attached to it. And that's why businesses in this country continue to fuck up and just pay out their fines every year because they see it as a business expense. They see it as a business expense. So if a company pollutes a river, destroys the habitat in that river, poisons a bunch of people downstream, what happens to them? Do their leaders go to jail? No. Do their shareholders go to jail? No. What happens? They get issued a fine. How much is that fine? $15 billion. How much did we make last year? $30 billion. Sold. And that's after costs? Yeah. $30 billion after costs. Sold to the man in the APA uniform. So it should either be jail, community service, or nothing. I think that would certainly be a more fair and equitable system than what we've got right now. Yeah. Don't you think so? Especially if community service could be expanded to mean a bunch of different things. Like, honestly, community service already is pretty expansive. Like, there have been all kinds of celebrities and shit who have worked off their community service obligations by doing shows for impoverished communities and shit. Part of it too is how racialized communities tend to be poor, and cops, at least in the past, would charge POC with ridiculous crimes like loitering, and the punishments doled out in court were often extremely steep. Oh yeah, 100%. That tendency, by the way, is not completely gone. That is not something that just happens in the past. It's just something that is talked about less nowadays because it's not happening in big cities anymore. Big cities have all pretty much universally figured out that you can't get away with charging black people with horrible crimes more often than you ever charge white people. Big cities have realized that you can't just charge every black person you see in the wrong neighborhood with loitering. Big cities have realized, thanks to incidents like the Watts riots and the Rodney King riots, that you can't just fucking beat on people because they violate some little rules. And that has made those problems kind of absent in massive cities. I mean, I'm sure they still happen, but it's made it certainly way less public. But it still happens in small towns. It still happens every fucking day in small towns all over America. I guarantee you, maybe not right this second, but I guarantee you about 6 hours ago, there were probably 20 black men in different towns in the state I live in being harassed by cops for being in the wrong suburb. Well, let's say you speed over the limit. Isn't a high money ticket a good deterrent versus jail or someone having to do community service that they're very, very busy with work or work and family stuff? No, because it just allows people who are rich to get away with it as much as they want, and allows people who are poor, in fact, forces people who are poor to pay that fine. no matter how much it takes away from their work and family stuff. I mean, consider this. If you're worried about people having the ability to engage in their work and family stuff, then you should really be worried about people getting massive fines that stress them the fuck out and lead to family fights and shit. Because I guarantee you that family can handle their loved one going to do weekends in the jail a lot better than they can handle their loved one suddenly being saddled with fucking $1,500 worth of debt or $2,000 worth of debt, whatever it happens to be. But even if you do consider, like, yeah, that would be a shitty thing. Like, that's what a punishment is supposed to be. That's what a fucking that's what a negative incentive is supposed to be. Like, yeah, it's not going to be great to be sent to jail for the next 6 weekends or whatever. But it's not supposed to be. It's the whole point. Is it not? What about a fine that scales with taxable income or something similar? Maybe. Maybe, but then cops are just going to complain about fucking not having the discretion to write whatever fine they want, whatever fine they see fit. I think you just need to take the power away from them completely. Fuck fines. Fines are a classist fucking idea that enables some people to skirt the law forever with impunity. Because fines are never fucking pursued as heavily as fucking jail time is. Fines are never pursued as heavily as heavy jail time is, dude. And that's why I use the example of a lawyer. If you can afford to have a good lawyer on standby, not necessarily on standby, but on retainer, if you can afford to have a good lawyer on retainer, you don't ever have to worry about something as stupid and petty as a speeding ticket. You pull over every single time the cops flash their lights because you're waiting for them to do the right thing. So you're waiting for them to do the wrong thing so you can sue their ass and get a few more million to add to your bank account, your already padded bank account, right? If you're rich like that, you're just waiting for the fucking day. And otherwise, you've got the lawyer on retainer just to fucking keep you from ever having to deal with a state issued fine or something like that. Like I said, lawyers of a high enough caliber will stop a fucking traffic stop in the midst of it happening. It's easy to see when you talk about wealth. It's easy to see why so many Americans kind of envy the wealthy, why they maybe relish. Like, some people seem to be obsessed with the very idea of a billionaire, and sometimes I can kind of see why. Because wouldn't it be awesome to be able to just basically magically snap your fingers and make a traffic stop disappear? Because that's what a significantly rich enough person can do. I'm not even kidding you guys. A significantly rich enough person finds the one lawyer in town that is friends with the fucking police chief or whatever, and hires that person and then calls them up every time they get in a fucking traffic stop. And then bada bing, bada boom, somehow 15 minutes later, the cop returns with their ID, real red in the face, and is like, "You have a beautiful day." But serious crimes aren't normally fines anyway. They are either probation or jail time. So sure, maybe small petty crimes like speeding will be less serious for rich people, but not the important crime. So what's your point then? Like, we should just allow rich people to get away with the small petty crimes because, well, they're just small petty crimes. Well, if they're small and petty enough to where we can just allow rich people to get away with them, then why can't we allow poor people to get away with them? Are you starting to see how this problem is fucking has a very easy solution. Like, there are things in this society that are important to enforce, and whose not being enforced every so often usually doesn't lead to any negative repercussions, right? Like speeding. All kinds of people speed. And 99% of the time when you speed, it doesn't lead to a crash, right? So it's one of those things where if there's a lapse in prosecution of it, or if if you dodge prosecution on that somehow, right, it's not the biggest fucking deal in the world. Um, that doesn't mean we need to stop enforcing it. And in my opinion, it is way more fair to enforce it with an equal system. And a wealth-based system isn't equal. It's just inherently unequal. A system that can be subverted just by having enough money is an unequal system. They aren't getting away with them, though. They just have an easier time paying for it. Yeah, no, that is getting away with it. Like, how is that not getting away with it? So if you're poor, you have to pay it off. And if you can't pay it off, you have to serve jail time. If you're rich, if you get the ticket at all, you pay it off before closing time that day. Or you pay it off before court closes the next day, you know? And it's over and done with in a day or two, if you're rich. That is getting away with it. Unless you're going to say buying a car is a punishment. Is buying a car a punishment? So what are you saying? Are you seriously going to make the argument to me that forcing a person with $6 million in liquid assets, forcing that person to pay $600 because they drove too fast, you're really going to tell me that's a punishment and not a bribe? You're really going to tell me that's a punishment, not a system of legalized abuse of the law? That's not a punishment for that person. That's a fucking deal being cut. That's paying for the privilege to continue walking free despite trampling on the laws of the country you live in. That is getting away with it. Just like when you buy a car, in the example that you used, just like when you buy that car and you drive off the lot with it, you're not being punished with it. Nobody forced you into that. Nobody forced the rich person to speed. Nobody forced them to speed. Nobody forced them to pull over. And nobody's forcing them to just go ahead and pay the fine. They can fight it with their lawyer if they want to, and they will probably win. And in that case, they do get away with it. But that's if we're fucking considering, that's if we're allowing to ourselves to indulge the narrative that rich people are getting tickets at all. And I don't know how to explain this to you, but if you go to a fucking day of hearings at your local court, you might find a single rich person getting prosecuted that day. You might find 2 or 3 people with any significant amount of money having any kind of legal trouble that day. If you're lucky, if you're real lucky, you might have like 2 or 3. But if it's a normal day at court, there won't be any. It's all going to be poor people, working class people, and maybe a couple of middle class people getting fucking gaffled up for shit. But the poor and rich person both broke the law. Nobody forced either to break the law. So why shouldn't both be punished with the same fine? Why should either be punished with a fine when one of them can just pay it instantly or subvert it entirely, and the other will have to go to jail if they can't pay it? How is that fair? Rich people will just pay fine, not fight it in court. You don't know what you're talking about. The first fucking choice, if you have the money, is always fight it in court. Because if you fight it in court and it goes the right way, you can then sue the police department. Get a bunch more money out of the taxpayer. Some wealthy people will just pay the fine, sure. But if you're rich enough to have a lawyer on retainer, that's why you have the lawyer on retainer. It's not to fucking pay them. It's not to pay them $2,000 a month for your health. Trust me. Well, only if the police did something illegal. You have such a rosy, beautiful view of our American justice system. I'm telling you, as a person who's been on both sides of the bars, this justice system that you're in here, uh, you know, extolling the virtues of, is not a system with virtue. Tell me this. How the fuck did O.J. Simpson get off? Let me ask you this. Do you think O.J. Simpson would still be walking free, or would have been walking free? Do you think O.J. Simpson would have been walking free after that chase he led through L.A. if he wasn't rich? If O.J. Simpson was just a regular old black guy in L.A., do you think that that would have ended the same way? Just out of curiosity. They shouldn't be punished with the same fine because the rich person isn't truly punished. Right. Right. If you have 10 apples and as a punishment to you, I take away one apple, and another person has 100 apples and I take from that person one apple, right? If I'm taking one, okay, so let's just say there's some infraction in some social group, and the punishment for that infraction is just a baseline, one apple. Say a person with 10 apples does a bad thing. Well, I take one apple from them. They've only got 9 apples now. But say a person with 1,000 apples does a bad thing. Well, they could do that same bad thing 901 times before they would be in the same position. Or, I'm sorry, 991 times before they would be in the same position that of the person that had 10 apples. So, does that illustrate how it's an unfair system? Does that help you see why it's so fucked up? How it's disproportional, right? How it hurts one person way more than it hurts another person? I wish Perseus was in here right now. Dude, there's a person in my chat who's a mod in here who is a rich Thai heiress and is like openly acknowledges she's part of the bourgeoisie. And I wish she was in here right now because they would tell you 100% that I'm fucking right. That rich people don't worry about fines because they know their lawyer is going to fight it to the death. And it'll either be knocked off their record or it'll become like a $10 fucking, expired tag or some shit. Couldn't you say the same about affording food and housing and how that's unfair? Because you think the whole money system is wrong? I mean, I haven't said the whole money system is wrong, but yeah, I think that there are some fucking pretty apt comparisons to be made with food and housing. Yeah, I think that the way we divvy those things up is unfair too. Like, a house doesn't stop existing because a mortgage isn't being paid on it. You know how I know? Because I live in a house that never had a mortgage attached to it. I mean, maybe I guess it did was when it was originally purchased, but by the time we got it from the owners, it had been fully paid off. Well, actually, what happened to the trailer I live in is that a fire broke out in it, interestingly enough. And usually when you hear that, you think, oh, the whole trailer burned down. But no, they actually caught this fire just as it was starting up. Just a couple of things had caught in fire. I mean, it smoked the whole house out and it was fucked up, but it was kind of interesting, right? The insurance company came out and they told the people that originally owned the trailer we live in that it was a net loss and that they would just be better off getting a new trailer, and basically paid off what was left on that trailer. But they didn't, there were no conditions on the payout with what they did with the trailer. Like scrap it, sell it, dismantle it, finish the job with burning it. I don't know. Like they had plenty of options, but they happened to be customers of my parents' auctions way back, way back in the day. So like 10, 15 years ago, way more than fucking 10 years ago, maybe 15 years ago, 16, 17, 20, fucking 20 years ago. I don't fucking pretend to know anymore, but it was a long ass time ago. I remember that. We stopped living in the old trailer that was here probably when I was like 8 or 9, maybe. Yeah, something like that. Something like that. Maybe 8, maybe 9, maybe something like that. And been living in that one ever since. And let's see, I would have been 8, 9, something like that when we moved into that one. That would have been 2006. I believe that trailer is a 2004. So that measures up, yeah. That lines up, I'm pretty sure. Anyway, the insurance company considered it a total write-off and didn't apparently care what the owners did with it. And they were customers of my parents' auction, like I said, way back in the day. There's no fucking way I moved into that trailer when I was 8. Did I really? I'm gonna have to ask my parents because they're gonna know way more than me. They're gonna know for sure. But the more I think about it, I mean, I know in 2012 we lived in that trailer. I know the year before that we lived in that trailer, and the year before that too. I'm sorry, I'm getting so fucking hung up on this shit for some reason. But anyway, um, because they were customers of my parents, they were able to arrange a trade. They wanted this nice bedroom set that my parents were selling that they hadn't been able to move because, well, basically, my mom knew its value and didn't want to let it go for less than what she considered a good deal on it, you know? Which people had made some offers, but none of, like, they were all pretty lowball. And she wasn't asking for the full value of it, but she was trying to get what she knew would be a decent profit margin out of it if she could just wait long enough for the right buyer to come around. And I guess that eventually happened because she was able to trade that bedroom set for the trailer that we live in right now. Yeah. And people say you have to buy a house with money. Dude, the house I live in was bartered for. The house I live in was bartered for. And the work that's been done to maintain it so far has been done by our own hands, right? Ostensibly, in a collectivist, communistic society, that would be pretty easy to manage. But yeah, I think the idea that human necessity needs to be placed behind the gates of money, I think is just an idea that exists to enrich rich people. Of course, the people who own all the commercial farms and who own all the real estate want you to believe that their system is the only fucking possible way you can have a house or that you can have food. Listen, I am not an advocate of some kind of crazy Marxist idea about society that can happen tomorrow and we're all going to go along with it. What I am an advocate for is realizing some ideas that are very fucking good. And here's some ideas that are very fucking good. One, housing is a human right. It doesn't need to be something that is fought over in financial markets. It doesn't need to be something that wealth is based upon or bred with. It is what people need to be able to live. It is a fundamental need of humanity. And it is something that we have a fucking, we have an obligation, in my opinion, as social animals, to help ensure that all of us have that through shared effort, right? And so far, the best way we've found to allow people to do what they're passionate about and do what they're good at and do different things, and also manage to do what is effectively shared labor is income tax. I'm perfectly fine with that system going on as long as it needs to, but ultimately, we already share a lot of collective, we already do a lot of collective effort in this society. Everyone who works and draws a paycheck, or ever has worked and drawn a paycheck, has contributed to the military industrial complex. So America believes in collective effort and collectivism and communism and shit when it comes to funding the military. When it comes to funding the military or funding cops or anything like that, for some reason that's always in the budget. For some reason, people are perfectly willing to have their income taxed and their wealth redistributed in furtherance of bigger tanks and more soldiers, but not in furtherance of bigger hospitals and more doctors. What is the most succulent meal you've ever enjoyed? Might be the last question I answer for the night, by the way. So if anybody wants to send a super chat, now's your time. I really do appreciate them, and they are the best way to make sure your comment gets read. I should have pimped them earlier, but I didn't. Anyway, what's the most succulent meal I've ever enjoyed? That's a good question. That's a good question. I guess it depends on how do you define succulence. Are we just using succulence as like a stand-in for deliciousness? What is the second most succulent meal you've ever enjoyed? Well, in order to define that, I have to define the first. So let me ask you this. What do you mean when you say succulent? Do you mean literally like what, like, because I think succulent's actual definition is like juicy, basically. That which can be sucked, I think, would be what succulent actually means. Or do you mean it in the more colloquial sense where it just means like a synonym for delicious? I think Sven might just be a bot. I've been responding to their comments like they're real, but now I think they might just be a bot because I asked a clarifying question and they just asked a third question that's the exact same kind. Think we might be dealing with a bot. Do 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 do. Beep boop. What is the fourth most succulent meal you have ever enjoyed? Beep boop. Beep boop. I'm a robot. I have nothing real to say. Yeah, see, this is just getting annoying. Get out of here. Be gone. Be gone, robotic thoughty. Oh, god damn it. I'm such a fucking retard. I just kicked my fucking drink over. You know what? I'm going inside. Fuck you all. Goodbye.